is the Fight Numbers Podcast with your host, John Kelly.
What is going on, everyone? John Kelly here with FightNumbers.com, here to talk about UFC 249. I am super excited to be back with you guys. Hopefully you're excited too. We have UFC coming back in full force. Not only do we have the UFC 249 May 9th card, but Dana White has also orchestrated a May 13th card next Wednesday and a May 16th card next Saturday, and then May 23rd card as well. So we literally have 4 UFC events in a span of like 15 days. So I know we've had a long holdout here, but we're about to get spoiled. And it starts with this UFC 249 card, which is absolutely stacked. So I'm going to break down, for those of you that haven't joined us before, I'm going to break down each fight matchup from the card. I'm going to talk about it from a Draftkings perspective primarily. I'm also going to talk the betting markets, where I see value, how I see the fight playing out, whether or not I think there's value in the line, that sort of thing as well. Talk some props, some line movement later on, and a little bit of game theory as well. As per usual, feel free to interrupt me in the chat at any time. Try to keep it on the fight that we are discussing. If not, no big deal, won't hold it against you. But overall, just super excited to be back with you guys. I have been pulling my hair out, waiting for sports, waiting for the UFC to return, and now it's back, so I couldn't be more excited. And then last 2 updates before we get started. I know this is a lot, but it's been a while. I miss you guys. 2 things. 1, my dog is freaking out right now, so I apologize if he hops on camera. He's got his face in my lap right now because he heard some gunshots. We live by a gun range, and every time they're popping off over there, he freaks out. So he's like going crazy right now. So I apologize if he interrupts at any time. And then I also have furniture being delivered later today. They shouldn't call till later, but in case they do, I'll have to take that. So just wanted to let you guys know ahead of time so it doesn't look as weird. But yeah, so that's that. So we can get right into the card. And then also, I was going to say I will be giving away at least 2 tickets to the main Draftkings GPP, $20 to enter. That's a $20 value. Absolutely free just for tuning in here. So stay tuned for that. It will be completely random. For those that have been listening to me for a while, we've used like an automatic name generator spinner thing that points somebody completely random. We'll do something like that in a little bit here. And yeah, and then if we see a lot of people hopping in here and we have a lot of viewers, maybe I'll give away 1 or 2 more. We'll see. We haven't done a Saturday stream in a while, so excited for you Saturday folks to be able to join us. So we'll get right started on this card. First fight up on the card is going to be Ryan Spann versus Sam Alvey. And Ryan Spann, this one, the lines moved a lot. I think he opened up at like 240 or something. It doesn't show here on Best Fight Odds, but before the first time this fight was posted, for the first UFC 249, it was actually in the 2s. And then they pulled it, and then they reopened it at 4. But basically, this line's been steamed ever since the fight was announced. And I can definitely see why. Ryan Spann, his inside distance line is very strong as well, minus 131. And like I said, this actually opened not as good, so it's not showing the first time this fight was posted. But Ryan Spann is basically he's basically like this young up-and-comer, super athletic for his size. He's an aggressive grappler, and he's coming off he's on a 7-fight win streak. He's 3-0 in the UFC, and Sam Alvey's like the reverse of that, right? Like Sam Alvey's been around for forever. He's coming in this fight on a 3-fight losing streak, and he's been knocked out in 2 of those fights. Now, as with most Sam Alvey fights, he's likely to be a low volume, backed up against the cage, just looking for that one heavy left hand. Now, the blueprint's out on him, and obviously in his last 3 fights, he hasn't been super difficult to take down. But Ryan Spann, I'm confident he wins the fight, but my only concern with him is because the price is so high on DraftKings. Generally speaking, the Sam Alvey fights are not super high scoring because he likes to slow it down, low volume fight. And on top of that, Spann's pretty slow starter. He doesn't jump right out. And I've actually backed Ryan Spann in all of his UFC fights, and it was kind of frustrating. His not his last fight, the fight before that, where the whole first round he didn't do anything. Like, he just stared at him, and then he ended up getting a sub, I think, in the second round. Was that his last fight or the one before that? But anyway, 9,300 I think is just too steep to pay, even though I think he does take care of Sam Alvey. Okay, so it was his last fight, yeah, against Devin Clark, where he got the sub in the second round. Now, while I do see him scoring decent, 9,300, he has to get that first round finish, which, like I said, if he starts out slow and Sam Alvey just slows the fight down in general, I don't think it's coming in the first round. So I do think he wins. I think he wins fairly easily, but because I'm not convinced it's coming in the first round, that makes him mostly a fade for me. I will have him in some lineups on DraftKings, but not a guy that I'm forcing in by any means, especially when you have so many strong plays in the upper 8K and low 9K range. He's just kind of a secondary tournament play for me. Spawn by knockout is the official pick, but I think, like I said, I think it comes in round 2 or round 3 would be my guess. So possibly a live betting situation if you're into that. Next fight up on the card is going to be Bryce Mitchell versus Charles Rosa. Bryce Mitchell is, I think, let's pull up the DraftKings pricing here. I think he's 85. No. I think he is, 85, and Charles Rosa is 7,700. And he is the minus 155 favorite. That's actually gone the other way, and Charles Rosa, the comeback on him is plus 135. This fight as a whole to go to decision is minus 160. Neither fighter really has a strong inside distance line. Bryce Mitchell has the better at plus 215. But basically, I'm on Bryce Mitchell here. I've seen a lot of sharp people on Bryce Mitchell, and it's really hard to argue. He's coming off the big twister submission against Matt Sales, which was incredible. One of the best submissions of the year and of the past couple years. Only been pulled off a couple times in the UFC. Charles Rosa is coming off a submission victory as well. His came against Manny Bermudez in October of 2019. It was a big victory for him coming off the 2.5-year layoff after getting knocked out by my boy Hurricane Shane Burgos. But like I said, I'm on Bryce Mitchell here, and the reason being is Charles Rosa is, yes, he's a black belt, he's a good grappler, but Bryce Mitchell's a grappler as well. And 9 of Bryce Mitchell's 12 professional wins have come by submission. So even if this fight, like I've seen some people talk about, Charles Rosa, he's so dangerous on the mat, and he is, but Bryce Mitchell can handle himself. He's a black belt in his own right. He's a very crafty submission grappler. So I'm not even worried if this fight does go to the ground. We've seen Bryce Mitchell scramble out of some precarious positions against Bobby Moffett and stuff like that. And then while this fight plays out on the feet, I think Bryce Mitchell has a pretty significant advantage. He definitely has more power. He's the more active striker. Charles Rosa basically just has like those karate style kicks. Definitely more comfortable on the mat. And whereas Bryce Mitchell, like I said, more power. He's got that heavy left hand. I think that could pose some problems for Rosa on the feet. And that's really why I lean towards Bryce Mitchell. Rosa in his last fight against Bermudez, he was really getting dominated from the jump. Like, Bermudez was all over him, took him down, got to mount, dropping ground and pound, and Charles Rosa just, he was eating a bunch of elbows and stuff and just searching for an arm bar, and Manny Bermudez, the low IQ Manny Bermudez, actually let him get it. So he pulled off an arm bar off his back, pretty, low percentage submission. Doesn't mean it's impossible, obviously, but against a guy like Bryce Mitchell, who's a black belt, and definitely more of a smarter fighter than I'd say Manny Bermudez is. I don't think that's going to happen against Bryce Mitchell. I think he has too much fight IQ. He's too well-rounded. I just expect him to win pretty much everywhere the fight goes. So I'm calling Bryce Mitchell by unanimous decision here. That's the official pick. The only thing with the $8,500 price tag on DraftKings, that is tough if it does go to a decision, unless we see a lot of takedowns, a lot of exchanges, which is possible. but not enough to make me want to be super heavy on Bryce Mitchell. So although I am pretty confident he wins the fight here, I like the bet more than I like to play on DraftKings. Moving on to the next fight on the card, Vicente Luque versus Nico Price. Luque comes into this matchup as the 275 favorite, the underdog Nico Price at plus 235. Luque's coming off a decision loss to Stephen Wonderboy Thompson, but prior to that, he was on a 6-fight win streak, which included a win against Nico Price back in 2017. Nico Price is coming off the crazy upkick knockout of James Vick. I'm sure you guys don't forget that one back in October. And the thing about Nico Price is you're never going to get a dull fight. Only one of his 17 professional fights have gone the distance. This fight as a whole is minus 400 not to go to decision. And actually, let's pull that up because that's a number that's been getting steamed as well. It actually might have moved even more. Oh, it actually came back a little bit. So it pulled back to minus 375 not to go to decision. Opened up at 425. But yeah, so obviously Vegas is expecting some fireworks here, probably a knockout, and probably on the Luque side. Luque's inside distance line is minus 160. That is the best on the entire slate, making him a very strong play at only 9K on DraftKings. Now, I'm just going to be super overweight on this fight as a whole. Not going to go all in on Vicente Luque. I definitely lean that way. But Nico Price has a way of just, coming from behind and pulling off these absurd knockouts like the upkick knockout of James Vick. And yes, I know that was James Vick. He could probably sneeze and knock himself out. That's the saying with James Vick. But still impressive nonetheless that Nico Price is still able to have all these comeback knockouts. He's always looking for that knockout. But the problem is, like we saw in the Mike Perry fight against Vicente Luque, Luque has an iron chin. He ate so many big shots in that Mike Perry fight and just kept coming forward. He's so powerful, a great grappler as well. I believe, both fighters are brown belts in BJJ, so I don't really see an advantage there. I just think this one mainly plays out on the feet, and if that's the case, Luque is going to be the more active guy, the more technical striker, the more accurate striker, and the more powerful guy. So and probably the better chin as well. So I'm all over Vicente Luque here. The inside distance line I mentioned minus 160, and I actually like that bet quite a bit. Considering Nico Price's track record on losses inside the distance. All right, next fight up on the card is going to be Jacare Souza versus Uriah Hall. Souza comes in as the minus 125 favorite. The comeback on Hall is plus 105. This one is a little bit difficult for me. This fight doesn't go to decision. It's minus 140. But the reason why I say it's difficult is because Uriah Hall, it's just always tough betting on Uriah Hall, but B, it's also tough betting against Uriah Hall. I've been on the wrong side of Uriah Hall, whether I've been on him or fading him in so many of his matchups, and that's really the type of fighter that he is. You just never know what version you're going to get. Sometimes he looks like a world-class contender, and then other times he looks like he should be, the opener on the early prelims or something like that. But he's coming off back-to-back wins here. He's looked pretty sharp in those fights, whereas Jacare Souza, obviously a legend. I'm not going to knock the guy, but clearly on the back end of his career, and it's starting to show in his last few fights. Up to this point, basically all of his losses are against the best of the division, and Uriah Hall definitely doesn't fit that category. But I'm still picking Uriah Hall here. And the reason is because, Souza's big advantage in this matchup is he's obviously a 4th-degree black belt in BJJ. He definitely has a grappling advantage against Uriah Hall. However, I don't know if that's the way this fight's going to go. His last few fights, we haven't even seen Souza try to take people down and use that grappling advantage. So, and on top of that, he's generally a pretty slow starter as well. So I just think Hall's going to be the more active fighter. I think he's going to have a huge speed advantage in this matchup, and I think that alone is going to win him rounds if he doesn't get the knockout, which I kind of think he does. Souza's been really hittable in his last few fights, and I don't know if that chin's starting to go or what, but I think it'll be interesting. He's been such a slow starter, But though his last 2 fights were 5-round fights, so now he only has a 3-round fight. I'm wondering if he's going to come out a little bit differently. But I mean, there's really no way to tell. I just think, I mentioned he's been so slow in his last few fights and very hittable, and that could be a really dangerous combination against a fighter with the quickness and power that Uriah Hall has. It's not like I'm all in on Uriah Hall. His last 3 losses have all come by knockout. So he's just a boomer bust play, but he is cheap in the mid-range. And I was reading, he's actually been living at the gym, and it's actually pretty crazy. He's been living at his gym training since April 4th, I want to say, and it showed pictures of him. I think it was ESPN did a big write-up on it, but yeah, he just seems super focused, super ready, and I think he has the advantages at this stage in Jacare Souza's career that I think getting plus money on him is something I might nibble at. But certainly a boomer bust option. When we talk about DraftKings, he definitely has the upside that we're looking for, but it comes with some risk. We've seen him shit the bed in other spots. It wouldn't be the craziest thing, but at 7,900, if he does get a knockout and maybe it does come early, he's going to score very well at 7,900. And there's a couple guys on this card that fall into that same boat, and he's certainly one of them. So I like Uriah Hall. I'm on the slight underdog in that one. All right, next fight up on the card, we have Carla Esparza against Michelle Waterson. Carla Esparza comes in as the minus 165 favorite. The comeback on Michelle Waterson is plus 145. Michelle Waterson is coming off her main event loss against Joanna Jędrzejczyk back in October, where she dropped a unanimous decision in which basically she was dominated the entire fight. And Esparza is coming off the sketchy, I call it sketchy, the sketchy majority decision victory against Alexa Grasso back at UFC Mexico. But a win is a win. I don't know if she won the fight. I thought I scored it for Grasso. Total domination in the 3rd round and almost knocked out Esparza. The crowd was booing. They thought it was terrible. But it is what it is. It counts as a win. So she's coming off a win. But basically this matchup, I'm not a big fan of either fighter in terms of DraftKings scoring. So this one overall is just kind of a pass for me. But when you're talking about betting, I'm trying to see if there's any way I can find a path for Michelle Waterson here at getting plus money on the underdog. But Esparza has the wrestling advantage. She lands over 3 takedowns per 15 minutes. And that's usually something that Waterson can do against non-wrestling opponents, is look to land takedowns towards the end of a round, stuff like that. She's not going to be able to do that against Carla Esparza. And on the feet, whereas I think Waterson is more flashy and probably a little bit quicker, I don't think she throws enough volume, and I don't think she has the power that Esparza has. So although I do think Waterson can have some moments here, because I do think it is going to be a competitive fight, I do lean Esparza just because I think she has a pretty significant wrestling advantage. And on the feet, it's generally pretty even, but I'd say she has more power. But like I said, as for DraftKings, I don't think either fighter scores well, even in a win. So overall, it's just a total pass for me. Esparza by decision is the official pick on that one. Next fight up on the card, Alexei Oleinik versus Fabricio Werdum. This fight was originally supposed to happen back in September of 2018. So this one is a long time coming. The reason why it didn't was because Werdum was suspended by USADA for violating the anti-doping policy, and now they rebooked it. I think they rebooked it the first time for a fight night back in March, I want to say, and then it got scratched again, and then now they rebooked it for this one. So this one has literally been a long time coming. We have 2 older guys in the heavyweight division, both of them 42 years old. Werdum comes in at the 310 favorite here. The comeback on Oleinik is plus 255. Oleinik is coming off the 2nd round submission victory over Maurice the Crochet Boss Green, and Werdum is coming off a knockout loss to Alexander Volkov prior to the 2-year layoff. And coming off such a layoff, just in general, I like to fade older fighters towards the end of their career, but especially coming off a long layoff like this one for Werdum. But this case is a little bit different because he is a heavyweight fighter, and we know they can last a little bit longer in their careers once they get older. That division's a little bit more forgiving than, say, bantamweight or featherweight or pretty much any other division. So, and we'll get to Donald Cerrone later, don't worry. But yeah, so basically both fighters, high-level black belts in BJJ. Olynyk's last 8 fights haven't reached the final round. So basically we know the winner's going to score well. When it comes to who has the grappling advantage, it's definitely Werdum. He's a world-class grappler when he's in his prime. But as for Olynyk, he's a very crafty grappler as well. And then on the feet, you have to lean Werdum. Werdum has more power. Both guys really don't have a chin. So this one, it's definitely going to score well, I think. Werdum has the strong inside distance line, -145. That makes him one of the better options on the slate. But you're going to pay for it with the price above 9K on DraftKings. I think he's 9,200, 93 maybe. Let's find Olynyk and Werdum. Yeah, he's 9,200 on DraftKings. And, obviously if he gets that first round sub, something like that, scores over 100, he's going to pay it off. If this goes to decision, he's probably going to bust really hard. But that's generally how it is with the heavyweight fights. And this one I don't think reaches the final bell because, like I said, Olynyk's last 8 fights haven't even gone to the 3rd round. So what I want to talk about with this one, obviously Werdum is the play, but there is risk with him. He's 42 years old, kind of chinny, definitely going up against a good grappler who's pulled off some sick upsets in his own right. So the pick is Werdum by knockout, but Olynyk by submission, I think, is way too undervalued. It's currently plus 610. And when you consider the high-level experience as a grappler that Olynyk has, it wouldn't be the most surprising thing to me if he did pull off a crazy sub here. So now, obviously, I'm not saying it's going to happen, but at plus 610, I'm going to take a shot on it. And so that's why I wanted to bring it up. I'll have shares of both sides. I expect the winner to score very well. And like I said, Werdum by knockout is definitely the more likely outcome, but there's just too much value betting Olynyk by sub. And those are really the only 2 possible outcomes I see for this fight. I see Werdum getting a finish, whether by knockout or sub, or I see Olynyk pulling off a crazy submission upset. I don't see either fighter going to decision, and I don't see Olynyk knocking Werdum out, although it is possible, but it's not something I'm banking on. So basically, why I want to bring this up is because if you're betting on this fight or on this card at all, I would take, you can basically take Werdum and bet a unit on Werdum -145 inside the distance, and then take a quarter unit and bet that on Olynyk by submission at plus 610. And basically, as long as the fight doesn't go to decision, and as long as Olynyk doesn't knock Werdum out, any other outcome, you're profiting a quarter unit. And you can scale that however you want, if you want to bet more, bet less, whatever. But basically, that's what I'll be looking to do to take advantage of how I see this fight playing out. And I think it has a high probability of playing out in those two outcomes. So that's something I'm going to be doing in case you guys wanted to tail. I did want to bring that up because I feel pretty confident about it. Next fight up on the card is going to be Anthony Pettis versus Donald Cerrone. Anthony Pettis comes in as the -150 favorite. This is the first time Anthony Pettis has been favored in like 3 or 4 years. Like, Pettis is always the underdog, especially lately, and he really hasn't come through. And I'm always, it seems like I'm always on Anthony Pettis, or at least always rooting for him, even if I don't have a bet on him or didn't play him in any lineups. I just like Anthony Pettis. But this matchup, this is the one, boys. And I know I've talked about Anthony Pettis in a lot of matchups, but this is the one. Not only do we get a fair DraftKings price at 8,200, but Donald Cerrone, I think this is it for him. He just had his big McGregor fight where he got paid more than he's ever been paid, so he got that big paycheck. He's 37 years old. He's been knocked out in his last 3 fights. He's been knocked out 7 times professionally. Like, I don't want to tell a man what to do with his life, and I love watching him fight. But at some point, it's time to hang it up, and I think that time has come for Cowboy Cerrone. As sad as it is, I really do, and I think, especially the last couple fights, Cerrone has been a guy who still has name value. So they feed him to somebody that they either want to rebound or want to build some momentum. So here, I think Pettis is the guy. We've seen him drop a couple fights. He's had some big name fights. Tony Ferguson, more recently the Nate Diaz fight, which he looked good in. So I think they're kind of feeding him Cerrone, throwing him a bone like, hey, let's get Anthony Pettis another win, another notable win. Even though at this stage in his career, I don't know how notable a Donald Cerrone win is, but I think that's what the UFC is doing here. And I know that's kind of like narrative, but when you talk about the actual breakdowns of the fight, I think Pettis has the advantages here. He has the grappling advantage for sure, and I think he even has the striking advantage. Now, a prime Cowboy Cerrone, I think, could outstrike Anthony Pettis, but at this stage, Pettis is too quick. He's too quick. He's too technical. He's everything. I just think he pieces him apart on the feet pretty much at will. And then when you talk about Cerrone, he just did an interview with ESPN talking about how how hard it is on his body these days, and he's not what he once was, and he slowed down, and he sees the light at the end of the tunnel. Those aren't things that I want to put my money on. You know what I'm saying? Like, I want to bet the other side of those fights, and that's exactly what I'm going to do. Even though it's against Anthony Pettis, a guy that hasn't been the most trustworthy fighter over his UFC career, I'm going to trust Anthony Pettis. And I know I'll probably get some heat for that because everyone always gives me shit when I back Anthony Pettis, but I think this is a really, really good spot to get Anthony Pettis back on track. And I think, even Vegas is kind of suggesting that. When's the last time Anthony Pettis wasn't expected to go to decision? And now we get him against Donald Cowboy Cerrone, and pulling up best fight odds here, minus 155 not to go to decision. And that opened at minus 105. So a lot of money getting steamed here that we're expecting a finish. And my gut is telling me it's not a Donald Cerrone finish. Pettis opened at plus 210. Early on went to minus 245, and then basically money has steamed that down to plus 185. I still like that a decent amount. I like Pettis by knockout because it seems like Cerrone's chin is kind of gone. We saw how the shoulder strikes of Conor McGregor affected him. But yeah, I'm basically on fade Donald Cerrone here. I'll take one last poke at Anthony Pettis and hope that we can get back on track here. With an Anthony Showtime Pettis bet. Next fight up on the card is going to be Greg Hardy versus Yorgan De Castro. Hardy comes in as the minus 200 favorite. The comeback on De Castro is plus 170. Greg Hardy, everybody's favorite UFC fighter, is coming off the decision loss to Alexander Volkov, while De Castro is coming off the big knockout of Justin Tafa back in October. And it's still kind of difficult for me to figure out just how talented Greg Hardy is as a fighter. There's no denying his athleticism, his power for this division. He's super mobile, moves a lot better than most heavyweights. But he's yet to really put it all together. And I think in his last few fights, I actually haven't been super impressed. I think he's perfected his jab quite a bit. His jab looks very good, but I think he's kind of fallen in love with it. And he seemed a little bit gun-shy in his last couple fights, especially against Alexander Volkov. I think he could have posed some problems for him if he just let his hands go. And I do not like to back fighters that look gun-shy. And I'm hoping that he lets his hands go a little bit here, but I think he might not have a choice because De Castro might just bring it to him and give him no choice. But I just hope he doesn't fall in love with his jab because the last few fights that he's done that have been total bust on Draftkings. And if he does it again, I think this one is a bust as well. So it's another heavyweight matchup. Both guys have power. I'm not going to fault you for targeting either side of this matchup, but I am nervous, like I said, that he hasn't, been willing to throw those heavy bombs like he did when he first burst onto the scene. But if that's the case, then it's probably going to be a low-scoring decision. And the pick is still Hardy, but I think we see a similar game plan, and it is a smart game plan to move around, to use that quickness, that mobility advantage that he has. Move around, pump that jab. That's going to work against most stationary heavyweight fighters. You're just going to outpoint them. Will it work against DeCastro? I don't know. DeCastro definitely doesn't look the part. He's got a big old belly on him, but he actually moves pretty well, and he's got some decent kicks as well. Both of them have upside, but I have no reason to believe that either of them are chinny at this point. So I actually wouldn't be surprised to see this one going the distance, which makes it kind of a fade for me on DraftKings, with some slight interest on the underdog, just because I don't know. I kind of like DeCastro just because I think he's the one, nothing to lose. People talked. They complained about this fight being on the main card, on such a stacked card, and DeCastro had something to say about that, but I don't know. I think he might take it too Hardy here. I think it'll be an interesting one, and he definitely has power. So, but overall, the pick is Hardy by decision. I could see it being a low-scoring DraftKings affair, so that's kind of the way I'm going to target it. Next fight up on the card, Jeremy Stephens versus Calvin Kattar, the Boston Bomber. Kattar comes in as a minus 235 favorite. The comeback on Stephens is plus 195. And I'll be honest with you, I was a little surprised how much the line was moving early on in favor of Calvin Kattar, and it's come back a little bit. I do feel he is definitely the rightful favorite, but if we can get we'll see how this line moves later on in the week, because if it goes back to what it was like the first time this fight was posted, it was 3-1 in favor of Calvin Kattar. If it gets to that again, that's where I got to take a poke on Stephens. But right now at plus 195, I'd still be on the Kattar side, but overall probably just a pass in terms of the bet. Stephens is a solid striker, but he's definitely been in some wars, and he's now on a 3-fight losing streak. If we exclude the eye poke debacle against Yair Rodriguez, and Calvin Kattar is just such a good boxer. I love watching Calvin Kattar. His footwork, his jab, his quickness, his feints, everything about Kattar, I'm a fan in terms of his boxing. And he's got legitimate power. He's definitely proved that. He's earned that nickname of the Boston Bomber, knocking out a few guys. Lamos comes to mind. That was a big knockout. But yeah, so basically I don't think Stephens is... I don't think he's quite the boxer and the striker that Calvin Kattar is, but we'll see. I think it'll be an eventful fight. I don't think Stephens is quite, shot yet at this point, but I think, if the line, if the comeback keeps coming more on Stephens, basically, if we get close to 2-1 on Kattar instead of the 235, then I'll probably bet Kattar, because I think that's a little bit too low. But right now I think it's about right. Cater's just too crisp on the feet. He's got that super long reach advantage. He uses it so well. He's also never been knocked out, so if this fight plays out on the feet like I think it does, he either wins the decision or gets the knockout, and his last 3 victories have come in that fashion. So Kattar by knockout is the official pick. I think it'll be a fun one, and I'm definitely excited for that card, or for that matchup. And I think that is that the opener for the main card? I want to say it is. They have the order all messed up on Best Fight Odds, so I'm honestly not sure. But I think that one opens up the main card. I could be wrong. But yeah, it's going to be a fun one. Either that or it's the feature of the... No, it's on the main card, because the feature of the prelims is Donald Cerrone, Anthony Pettis. All right, next fight up on the card. Francis Ngannou versus Jairzinho Rozenstruik. And Ngannou, Frankie Murder, minus 275 favorite. The comeback on Rozenstruik is plus 235. This fight not to go to decision is minus 310. And Ngannou inside distance line is minus 142. And if you're going to bet Nagano, instead of taking the inside distance line at minus 142, just bet him by knockout. I talk about this all the time. There's so many times where it's like, it makes no sense that these two lines are different. By knockout is minus 125. Why not save a little bit of juice and bet the knockout? Frankie Murder's not going to go out there and start grappling with Rosenstruck and submit him grappling. Like, that's not going to happen. So if you are on Frankie Murder, definitely bet by knockout rather than inside the distance line, because those two should be the same line, basically. And when it comes in terms of the matchup here, I really don't know what to think, other than this is a heavyweight fight and both guys have a ton of power. So in those situations, as always, I'm looking for the underdog because there's more value, especially in the heavyweight division. And basically, these two guys have combined for 23 finishes in 27 professional fights. So I don't think we're going to see a decision here. And in these type of matchups, I always recommend targeting both sides. And I'll do that again this week, because obviously either fighter can get an early knockout and then you probably need them. But I think there is more so than usual value on the underdog here. Rosenstruck is currently undefeated. He's coming off the knockout victory over Overeem, where he literally took his lip off. It was the most disgusting thing I've ever watched live. If you haven't seen it yet for some reason, then go look it up if you want to torture yourself. And Frankie Murder is coming in on a 3-fight win streak, most recently knocking out my boy, Junior Dos Santos. The winner of this fight is definitely next in line for a title shot, pending the outcome of Stipe and DC, but we'll see if that ever happens. But this fight has certainly big implications for the heavyweight division. I definitely understand why Frankie Murder is such a big favorite here, but the line, I think, is just too wide. And I'm going to take the value on Rosenstruck plus 235. And on Draftkings, he's one of my favorite underdog plays on the card. Not a guy I'm going to go all in on because he's facing one of the best heavyweights, who has a ton of power coming back the other way, who can knock him out at any second. But it's just the fact that he has a very good shot at scoring well if he does win. And I think it wouldn't shock me. I think this is closer to like a 55-45 fight. And the line is suggesting it's like not even close to that. So it's almost like a coin flip fight for me. You'd be foolish not to take the value. And I think the line will get a little bit closer come fight time. And it actually has, because earlier, the first time this fight was booked, again, it was close to 3-1 we were getting on Rosenstruck. And I was like salivating at the mouth because I just could not wait to bet Rosenstruck there. But yeah, so basically the prediction is somebody's getting knocked out here. Probably Nagano getting the knockout win, but like I said, too much value for me to overlook on Rosenstruck. So I'm going to be overweight on this fight as a whole, and definitely overweight to the field on the underdog. And I like that bet for plus 235. All right, next fight up on the card is going to be Henry Cejudo versus Dominic Cruz. Cejudo, the minus 220 favorite. The comeback on Dominic Cruz is plus 180. This fight not to go to decision is plus 155. And this one, I think I'm more excited for this one just as a UFC fan than a DraftKings player or a sports bettor for a couple reasons. But one, we have, the long-awaited return of Dominic Cruz, absolute legend, one of the best fighters ever, I think, coming off a 3.5-year layoff. So super excited to see him, even though I don't think he probably deserves a title shot right off the bat, but here we are. And then we have the ever-entertaining, self-proclaimed Triple C coming in off the Marlon Moraes knockout for the bantamweight belt. Prior to that, he had the big knockout of TJ Dillashaw, and then Dillashaw got popped by USADA. So, yeah, obviously, Cruz coming off the super long layoff. Last time he fought was the Cody Garbrandt fight at UFC 207. And yeah, I mean, like I said, I don't think he should have a title shot, but it is what it is. I'm not Dana White. I don't make those decisions. I don't get paid to make those decisions. But regardless, I think this should be an awesome fight for the fans. And I say that because, minus 185 to go to decision, it's probably not going to score super well. And I don't think it'll be a bust either, because both of these guys are, they historically have scored a ton of takedowns in their fights. But I think they kind of neutralize each other in some aspects of their wrestling. I think Cejudo definitely has the wrestling advantage, but I don't know how many takedowns I think he's going to land, just because Dominic Cruz is a good wrestler himself, and he's just very, very smart. One of the highest fight IQs, I think, ever, in my opinion. So I think both fighters are going to have their moments. I think Cruz earned some respect as a comeback player in this stacked bantamweight division, but I'm definitely on Cejudo here. I think he's able to use that wrestling advantage and get the nod here. So Henry by decision is the official pick. Overall, a stay away on DraftKings for the most part. I'll have a little bit here and there depending on how many lineups I make, but I'm definitely going to be underweight to the field on that fight. All right, main event. We have Justin Gaethje versus Tony Ferguson. The fight we have all been waiting for, sort of. I know we were waiting for Ferguson-Khabib, but that obviously isn't happening now, and I don't know if it will ever happen now, because other than the fight just being cursed, he's got to get through Justin Gaethje, and that is a very difficult task. And I know he's the minus 175 favorite. The comeback on Gaethje is plus 155. Justin Gaethje stepping in on short notice to replace Khabib, since Khabib was stuck in Russia due to the traveling restrictions because of COVID. Well, now we have Justin Gaethje, Tony Ferguson, which is another very exciting fight. So forget about the Khabib fight. We'll put that on the burner for now. Gaethje is just super fun to watch. He's absolutely live in every single fight, regardless of who's standing across from him in the octagon. He's a super aggressive fighter, kill or be killed mentality that many fighters struggle to match. And that's why this matchup is super interesting to me, is because so many fighters can't match that aggressiveness, that kill or be killed mentality. Tony Ferguson is one of the fighters who can match that. So that's why I think this is just like a total clash. Like, who's going to break? It's just amazing. I cannot wait for this fight. I'm super excited for this card and this fight in general. I think it's going to be a great way to get the UFC back with a bang. And, in terms of the matchup here, Ferguson, 12-fight win streak, absolute wild man. He's a great grappler. He's very active, good striker. He's a wild striker. But because of the discount on DraftKings, I already know that I'm going to be super overweight to Justin Gaethje. He's only 7,400. If he does win, then it's going to come by knockout most likely. He's going to score over 100, which means you're going to need to have him. He's coming off those 3 straight knockout victories, all coming in the first round. He likes to start fast and come right at his opponent. He even said in one of the interviews, like, I have 15 to 17 minutes of total war, of a good war. And he's like, if it goes past that, who knows? He pretty much said, like, I'm going to knock him out early or he's going to beat me. And I think that's pretty much how I see it playing out. But because he has such high upside at a cheap price, it's just too tough to ignore. Even though I think he's going to be one of the most expensive fighters on the card, or one of the most owned fighters on the card, sorry. I just think he also has a decent floor. So it's like, even if Ferguson wins, I don't think he's going to knock him out right away. And you see, even in Gaethje's losses, he's scoring 40, 50 points. Like, he's going to war before he folds. And he's literally ready to die before giving up. So those are the type of underdogs that I definitely like to back, especially if you're getting plus money on him like we are. So, it's just so tough. I'm really torn on it because Tony Ferguson is obviously a legend, excellent, well-rounded fighter. But, there's just, I don't know, something is, And I know that's not like a great analysis, but something is telling me that Justin Gaethje wins this fight. He shocks the world, knocks out Tony Ferguson, ruins the Ferguson-Khabib fight. We never see it. It's absolutely cursed. And I know that's total narrative, but regardless, throw all the narratives out. I think Gaethje's live either way. And it's pretty hard to argue that he can't go out there and knock out Tony Ferguson, even though Ferguson has never been knocked out. But if you watch Ferguson's last couple fights, he's been stunned. And he's actually, going back a few fights, he's been stunned a few times. He's been very close to getting knocked out. It's just nobody ever finished it. And, yeah, I just think, if Gaethje smells blood like that, he's going to be able to finish it. So, on a fight like this, I definitely think the winner's going to score super well. And even on the flip side, Tony Ferguson at 8.7K on DraftKings, if he wins, he's probably going to score 130, something like that. He's going to score super great. So it goes both ways. You need to have the winner of this fight. So I'm definitely going to be having both sides, but definitely overweight to the field on Justin Gaethje. And he is one of my top overall plays on DraftKings. And Gaethje by knockout at plus 165 is one of my favorite bets on the card. And that is it, ladies and gentlemen. That is the card. Some of my favorite bets on the card is going to be, I got a 6-pack for you guys. Anthony Pettis by knockout at plus 259. I like that bet quite a bit, considering Donald Cerrone's recent history. Probably looking to hang it up soon. And I just don't think he has the durability anymore. I think Pettis beats him up and probably finishes him. Vicente Luque inside the distance minus 160. I talked about Nico Price's history of never going the distance, so I think Vicente Luque finishes him, similar to how he did the first time. Maybe it comes by knockout this time. Either way, I think Luque gets the finish at minus 160. And then I talked about the Werdum inside the distance at minus 145. Place one unit on that, and then hedge by placing a quarter unit on Alexei Oleinik, the other side, by submission at plus 610. That way, as long as it doesn't go to decision or Oleinik knock Werdum out, then you're profiting a quarter unit, and you can scale that how you see fit. And then I like Rosenstruck by knockout at plus 371. I mentioned the plus money on him in such a close fight with two heavy power hitting heavyweights. It's just plus 371 for one of them to get a knockout is way too much value. You'd be stupid not to take it. Henry Cejudo by decision, plus 135. On a fight that's, I think, minus 185 to go to decision, I just think there's a little bit of value on Henry at plus money there. And then I mentioned the main event fight. I like Justin Gaethje by knockout at plus 165. If you like what you hear, please hit the like button and subscribe. Follow me on Twitch if you haven't already. And we will give away some tickets here for anybody that's still there. Go ahead and say something in the chat just so I know who's all here. Type your name in the chat just so I can pull up a random name. Spin the wheel. Randomizer. Wheel of names. Random picker. All right. Say something in the chat and I will put your name in and we will give away some tickets. Tickets. Who wants tickets? And answer any questions you guys have as well. All right. No names. All right. Nobody wants any tickets. Say something in the chat, and if you're the only one, you're going to win a free ticket to the main DraftKings GPP, $20 to enter, $200K to first place. Super excited about how much money DraftKings has poured into MMA DFS recently. Just waiting. Right now, I know there's people in here. Right now, nobody has said anything in the chat. And if you're the only one to say something, then you are an automatic winner of the ticket. So let me know. If not, then maybe I'll change it to a Twitter giveaway if you guys already left. But yeah, while we're doing that, I will just talk about the upcoming schedule. So basically, Crusader 2414. Yeah, nobody wants a ticket. So if you're the only one here, you're going to get that free ticket. We'll give them a few more minutes while I talk about next week's schedule. If not, you are the winner of the DraftKings ticket. I don't want it to be included. Great. No, you will be included. Hang on. We'll see if anyone else says anything. So the schedule for next week. All right, there we go. Rosats 25, Tony Rosati. I'll take the ticket. There we go. We got 2 people. We'll see. We'll give it a few minutes, see if anybody else joins. If not, you guys will both get a ticket. Congrats. But if not, we'll see if anyone else joins. We'll spin the wheel, make it a little fun, give you guys a little sweat. But yeah, so basically busy schedule coming up next week. Obviously, we have the big May 9th UFC 249 card, but then we have Wednesday, May 13th card. So basically after the May 9th card on Saturday, that Sunday, I'll be going live to break down the Wednesday card. And then after the Wednesday card, that Thursday, I'll be going live to break down the May 16th card. And then we'll be back caught up on normal schedule where I'll go live every Wednesday of fight week and so on and so forth. But I did want to tell you guys that it'll be an absolutely busy week, a lot of content from me. So if you like what you hear, hit the like button and subscribe on Twitch. Follow me on Twitch. I'm trying to get to 50, only 5 away. Definitely appreciate it. YouTube, hit the subscribe button. All of this stuff is totally free. And check out fightnumbers.com, which will have a replay of this video along with ownership projections, Draftkings player rankings broken down by salary tier. It'll have a line movement page that's updated every Saturday. And again, this is totally free. I just ask that you support my content, you share it, you follow me, all that good stuff. I definitely appreciate it. All right. You two are the only ones that said anything, so congrats. You are both getting a $20 ticket into the main DraftKings GPP, $20 to enter, and $200,000 to first place. So I'm still a little biased. I hope I win the $200,000, but if I don't win, I will be very happy if one of you guys do. So go ahead and hit me up on Twitter or Instagram at John Kelly DFS. Direct message me and let me know your Venmo or PayPal, and I will give you that $20 ticket. All right. Good luck, guys, and I will see you on fight night or on Sunday breaking down the next card. Good luck. Thanks, guys. Peace.
You've been listening to the Fight Numbers Podcast with John Kelly. Thanks for listening, and be sure to like and subscribe.